So, story time. Okay, so this video is about daughter Piercia. So, daughter Piercia was God's daughter. And just like Jesus, Piercia was sent into the world as an offer, not as a sacrifice. Because a lot of people think that Jesus was a sacrifice. He was not. The world was not supposed to do that to him, but they did it to him. God sent daughter Piercia into the world, and she had a very, very, very divine mission. But it wasn't until Piercia's 18th birthday that God was going to acknowledge the fact that she was his daughter. So he didn't acknowledge her. So he did not acknowledge her as his daughter. Her whole life she knew not exactly how she was going to find out when she turned 18, how the world was going to find out, but she knew deep down inside that, she was there for bigger, better reasons, because nothing made sense at first. So, Piercia was left alone for 18 years in the world, and God let her maneuver through the world however she chose to. God did not intervene into her life unless he saw something really bad happening or she called for him. He wasn't going to reveal himself to her until her 18th birthday. And that was set in stone before she was even born. So, for the first 18 years of Piercia's life, her time in the world was normal. As normal as any child of God's, So, God let her go through so many things because he knew that she was a warrior. He knew that on her 18th birthday, he was going to reveal himself to her and reveal the fact that she was to train to become a very good warrior in the world and in the spirit world. So, every time Piercia was going through something in her childhood, God gave her small hints throughout the universe that everything was going to be okay. And that she didn't have to worry about all of the things that was happening because he had a better plan for her. He would show her in ways like pictures in the sky when she looked at the clouds. He would show her in ways like listening to the wind against the trees and hearing messages. He would show her like every time something really bad was happening in the middle of the year, always in the middle of the year. He would let her find a 4-leaf clover. And she had a really big understanding that 4-leaf clovers were good luck. And they were very rare and hard to find. So, ever since Piercia was 7, every year, God let her find a 4-leaf clover. And it was always at a time where she was bawling her eyes out because she just couldn't take the world anymore. She just couldn't see herself staying there too long. So God would show her in big ways every time when things got hard and things got very dreadful that she was there for a reason. So, it was when Piercia was 7 years old. She was going to school and she was in 1st grade. Piercia was on her way to school early in the morning and she was super late for school because she woke up late. And you would think, how did she wake up late? Piercia was 7. Someone was supposed to wake her up for school. But Piercia's mom was gone and was at work already, and Piercia was supposed to have stayed up from 6 to 7 to get to school on time and to make sure everybody got to school on time in her household. But Piercia went to sleep because she was up the night before because she had lots of nightmares that night. So she didn't go to sleep when it was dark because she was scared. So when it got light outside, that is when she started to go to sleep. When Piercia woke up, it was about 8 o'clock and she knew that everybody was late for school. She was crying so much because she really hated being late to school and she really hated things happening the way that it wasn't supposed to happen. So she was crying. And you would think, like, that's not a big deal. So why was she crying? Why was it a big deal? But for her in her life, it was a big deal and she was crying. And she was asking the universe to get her and to take her away because she was really, really upset. So that morning, it was probably around September. That morning, Piercia went outside after she got all of her stuff ready. She got all her siblings ready. They all was going to school. But she just couldn't stop crying. Every time in her head, she kept telling herself to stop crying. It was okay. But she really couldn't stop crying. So, while they were waiting at the bus stop to go to school, Piercia was looking down at the grass. Just, normal 7-year-old stuff. First grader stuff. She was looking at the grass. She was looking at all the worms that was out. She really didn't like worms, and her brothers and sisters loved snakes and worms. So they were playing with the worms and trying to find snakes and stuff while the bus was coming. And she was looking at the grass, making sure there wasn't any snakes anywhere near her or any worms. But through her tears, she thought she saw something super amazing that she'd only heard of and only saw in a book at school before. So she wiped away her tears, and she looked very closely, and she saw that there was a 4-leaf clover in the grass right there at the bus stop. So she didn't know if she was supposed to pick it up or if she was supposed to let it stay there, but she wanted to show everybody at school, so she picked it. And she showed her brothers and sisters, and they were all super amazed because their sister found a 4-leaf clover. So the bus came, long story short, the bus came, and they all went to school. So Piercia got to school and she was very late, but she had a 4-leaf clover, so it really took away from the fact that she was late. Once she whipped out the 4-leaf clover, I found a 4-leaf clover. Look, I found a 4-leaf clover. And all of her teachers was amazed. She had 2 teachers, actually. She had a math teacher and she had a normal teacher. Piercia was in advanced math because as a first grader, she was 2 grade levels above normal first graders for math. So when she showed her normal teacher that she found a 4-leaf clover, her teacher took a picture of it, as a souvenir. So when she got to her math class, she showed her other teacher, and the other teacher also took a picture of it because, it's not something you see every day. Her second teacher put her 4-leaf clover in a bag for her to keep forever. So, long story short, so that's just a part of it. Piercia was in 2nd grade, and the cycle happened again, but she was too young to really notice the cycle. But she was having a really bad day. It was in the middle of the year again, and, she went outside, and she was waiting for the bus again, and she saw a 4-leaf clover again. On a really bad day, she always finds a 4-leaf clover. And that happened all the way until she was 18. Every year she found a 4-leaf clover. So, long story short, Piercia got to the age where she was 17. And she knew that she had a bigger purpose in life. She knew that she was there for a reason because all throughout her childhood, there was always signs and always symbols and always things happening along the way. But she never knew what to call it, and she never knew exactly when it was going to happen because when she thought about it, it did happen in the middle of the year. Usually, the biggest signs happen in the middle of the year. But Piercia just didn't know. Like, she didn't know what it all meant. She didn't know that it was going to be something super amazing that she was never going to forget once she found out. But God, aka her master, wasn't going to reveal himself all the way to her until her 18th birthday. And that was written in the script. Not the Bible. I'm not talking about the Bible. But the script. So, Piercia was 17 and her life was falling apart. Her life was really falling apart and she didn't know what to do. And she was depressed. And all her life, anytime she got depressed, little did she know she was depressed. But when she became 13 and 14, she realized that there was a word for what she was going through, and it was called depression. And it was always, always, always in the middle of the year. So, Piercia, now as a 17-year-old girl who knew she had depression, usually in the middle of the year, she was trying to find ways to better herself and to cope with it. And she knew that taking pills and doing any other thing that wasn't natural wasn't the way to go. She really believed in natural things because she had a very good connection to nature. The clouds always showed her things. The trees always spoke to her. The wind always spoke to her. You know, she knew nature was divine. So, Piercia started asking the universe to save her at the age of 17. She kept asking the universe to come save her, to show her that everything wasn't meaningless, to show her that there was a reason to keep living on this world, on this earth, because she really didn't think that there was a reason. She thought there was a reason, but it wasn't presenting itself to her the way that she thought it should. So she was doubting it. So, the middle of the year of her being 17, she found a 4-leaf clover, and she didn't get a chance to tell anybody this time because, you know, nobody was around at the time that she found it for a while. So that was something she had kept to herself. She found her 4-leaf clover. Now fast forward to the night before Piercia's 18th birthday. She was going through a lot. She didn't know what to do with her life, and it was around that time where she was about to have to figure out what she was going to do with her life. She was about to graduate high school and possibly start college, and she did not know what she wanted to do with her life. So she prayed about it. She prayed to the universe. She prayed to God. She prayed to Jesus. She prayed to any higher source that was good, that knew the answer to her question of what should she do with her life. And at first she didn't think she was getting her answers because she thought it was supposed to happen as soon as she asked. So she gave up and she just left it alone. She just was going with the flow. On the night that was leading into her birthday, Piercia went to sleep, and for some reason this sleep was way different than any other sleep she'd ever experienced. So she thought she didn't go to sleep, but she remembered getting in bed and going to sleep. But all of a sudden she was up in her house and it was daytime. But she didn't know what day it was. She didn't know what day it was, but she knew that she was awake. But she knew that she had just fallen asleep as well. So Piercia called out for her mom. She kept calling her mom. She kept saying, "Mom, where are you? Where are you?" There was no one in the house. But she knew that there should be people in the house, and technically it should be nighttime, and technically they were all asleep. So, across the room there was a mirror. And Piercia walked up to the mirror. And she looked at herself. And the person who she saw in the mirror did not look like the person she had saw in the mirror that day in the bathroom. The person in the mirror looked similar to her, but it wasn't the one she just saw in the mirror that day. So, she remembered something like this happening to her when she was 9 years old. Around 3rd grade, maybe 2nd grade, but I think 3rd grade. Yeah, it was 3rd grade. She had a dream that she was looking in the mirror when she was 9 years old, and the girl in the mirror looked a little bit like her, but it wasn't her. So she told the girl in the mirror, "That's not me. You're not me." And the girl in the mirror said, "Yes, I am." And because the girl in the mirror spoke back to her in the mirror, Piercia got really scared, and then she told herself, "I'm dreaming." So she knew that she was dreaming. And as soon as she had said she's dreaming, the girl in the mirror turned evil looking and had really spiky, pointy teeth. And Piercia was screaming, trying to get woken up. She was calling to her mom. She was calling to God. She was like, "Mom, wake me up. Mom, wake me up." Her mom never came. But that was because she was dreaming. But she was also awakened. So, yeah. She couldn't get out of her dream when she was 9 years old. But somehow she fell asleep inside of her dream, and then she woke up in the real world and everything was fine. But fast forward back to her 18th birthday coming into hand. So she looked in the mirror, and the girl didn't look like her. But she did look like her a little bit. She resembled her. So she knew she was dreaming, but because of when she was 9 years old, her saying "I'm dreaming" out loud messed everything up. She didn't say the fact that she was dreaming, but she knew in her head and thought that she was dreaming. So to keep herself from freaking out like she did the first time, she kept telling herself everything is okay, it's okay, it's okay. So she called out to God, because what else could she do but call out to God? Piercia called for God to come. She said, "God, please come save me. Please come save me. Please come save me." She said it 3 times. And she's looking at the girl in the mirror, and she's looking to see if she's doing everything that she's doing in the mirror. She's going back and forth, she's waving, she's looking towards the side, touching her hair. Then when she touched her hair, she realized that the girl in the mirror had straight hair, and she did not have straight hair. And she was like, she was trying not to get freaked out, but she was in a room by herself, and nobody was listening to her. Nobody was calling. Nobody was coming to her call. So she was getting a little freaked out, and she started feeling like she was floating. So she kept an eye on the girl in the mirror just to make sure that she didn't do anything weird, like step out of the mirror or do something crazy, because she saw a movie before that had something to do with mirrors, and it didn't end well. So Piercia was trying to stay calm and trying to figure out what was going on. Piercia finally, she stopped calling out to God, and she decided to call Jesus. She was like, "Jesus." She said it 1 time because she was tired of saying things more than once and nothing happening. So she said "Jesus" 1 time. And as soon as she said "Jesus," the light in the room got dim. And then after the light got dim, the girl in the mirror, she backed away. She backed away, and now the mirror was dark. So now Piercia, she's scared. She's very scared. So she started saying, "I want to get out of here. I want to get out of here." Then the light, boom, it came back on. Everything was bright. Everything looked very beautiful. Everything looked like a magazine type of amazing structure. Now she was in the same room she was in at first, but now it was amplified, and it looked so beautiful, and it looked like something she would only dream of having one day. So she looks around. She's like, "Jesus, can you please just speak to me? Can you please just tell me everything? I don't want to guess anymore. I don't want it to be a mystery anymore. Can you please just come and tell me? Come save me." No one said anything. Nothing at all happened other than the lights coming back on and getting brighter and the room changing into some extravagant stuff. So she decides to go walking around the new structure. She's walking around and she sees everything looks new. Well, she was just walking in the whole time. She sees everything looks new. But all the doors was closed. So she started opening the doors. She opened the door to the bathroom. She opened the door to the basement. She opened the door to the front door. And when she opened the front door to the front door, It was so bright outside that she couldn't take it. She couldn't see, she couldn't do anything. It looked so white and so bright. So she closed the door. And she sat on the couch and she just sat there in silence. And that was like the magic key. Now that she was sitting in silence in her dream, she started getting downloads in her spirit. Her spirit started brightening up. Her spirit started absorbing so many things. And she started getting messages about things that was going on in her life. In the real world. Not her dream life, but in her real life. And at first she didn't know what to think about it. She didn't know what to do. And they wouldn't stop. And it just kept coming. And basically it was a lot of things telling her like nobody was for her. Which she had kind of figured that in her real life, but she could never really admit it to herself to act upon it. But now she's getting downloads of every missing piece that made her not act on it because she didn't know how true it was. It was just her feelings, and she knew how her feelings get sometimes. But now these downloads was coming to her and showing her and telling her and presenting to her lots of things that she didn't know at first. So, as soon as the download stopped, Piercia fell asleep in her dream. She fell asleep. And then in turn she woke up. And when she woke up, it was her birthday. She was now 18 years old. Clap for that. She was now an adult. When Piercia woke up, she remembered her dream so vividly, just like when she was 9 years old. And she wrote it down in her book. Her book that she had just got not too long ago. She had got it a few days ago, and she was going to write like her work hours down, but she quit her job because she did not want to work a normal job. So it didn't work out. So she had a free book, and she wrote down every single thing that happened in her dream, and then on the next page she wrote down every single thing that presented itself to her when she was quiet in her dream. And she wrote down everything about her real life that her dream had told her was going to happen, had already happened, or was the real thing that had happened, basically. So she's writing everything down. She's memorizing every single thing she saw. She's memorizing every conversation she heard. She's memorizing so many things that happened to her in her dream. So, as it's her birthday, so she wrote it all down, and she put her book away. She just put it away because she didn't know that it was going to be as important as it was. But she knew that because she remembered it so vividly, and because it wasn't a normal dream that she never woke up inside of. She woke up inside this dream, so she knew that she probably should write it down. She wrote everything down in her book, and she put her book away. She put it on under her mattress, and she carried on with her day. She got ready for her day. She put on her clothes. She did her hair, and what else did she do? She did her makeup. Duh, it's her birthday. She want to look cute. As she's going through her day on her birthday, everything felt so much different. You know how it's your birthday and someone asks you, do you feel different? You just turned 9, do you feel different? You just turned 13, do you feel like a teenager? You feel different? You ever had anybody ask you that on your birthday or after your birthday? Yeah. So now that it's her 18th birthday, she feels a little bit different. But she didn't say anything because she didn't want to sound weird, because people love to try to tell her that she was a weirdo for everything that she told them about her dreams or about things she thought was true or going to happen. So she decided to start keeping stuff to herself. You know? So Piercia went outside and she saw 10 white butterflies. 10 white butterflies flying in a synchronistic flow. And it caught her attention, and she was like, 10 white butterflies? That must mean something. But she didn't know what to do. So she just took account to it. So she saw 10 white butterflies when she first went outside. The first thing that happened that day on her birthday that she had in her dream already, one of her friends came up and told her essentially a lie. But they came up and told her something that somebody else said to them about her. And in her dream, she had got this download already, but instead it was the person who told her who said it, and not the person who in real life told her the other person said it. That person who told her in real life that another person said it was the person who said it in her dream. So she was like, whoa. So she didn't care that the person was different. She didn't care that technically the person who told her in real life was the person who said it in her dream. She just cared that the exact same message that someone said about her was in her dream, and then it happened in real life. She was like, whoa, what? Then the next thing happened was she got flat irons for her birthday. And she hadn't straightened her hair in a really long time. But mind you, what I said in her dream, the woman in the mirror had straight hair. You know? It was small things. It was small but big things. And she just kept understanding that those things had just happened in her dream. So Piercia kept going about her day. But now she was looking for more things that happened to her in her dream to happen in real life. And everything that was happening in her dream that night happened before the day was over on her birthday. So, long story short about her birthday, because the details are many, so we're not going to get into details. That night, Piercia prayed before she went to sleep and asked God and Jesus if there was anything else they would like her to know. She told them that she wanted to know everything because it was better for her. So Piercia ended her prayer. She said amen, and she got in bed and she lay down. Usually Piercia falls asleep really easily and really fast. As soon as she gets into bed, it's like boom, she's in the dream world. But for some reason this night she could not go to sleep. She's tossing and turning in her bed, and she's just wanting to go to sleep so bad because she had things to do the next morning and she had to be up early. So she knew she needed to go to bed. It gets 10 o'clock and she's like, I need to go to sleep. Why can't I go to sleep? So Piercia finally decides to just lay there and close her eyes, and hopefully she'll fall asleep. While Piercia is laying there trying to fall asleep, she noticed that while she has her eyes closed, she keeps seeing these really bright colors in her eyes. But as her eyes are closed, she sees lots of bright colors floating around, going around in circles, doing all kinds of crazy things, making shapes, and just like really interesting things. So she has her eyes closed and her brain is watching all of the colors and the shapes and all of the things happening inside of her head. So now she doesn't care that she hasn't went to sleep. She just cares that as her eyes are closed, she sees a light show. So she's laying there for a while, and all of a sudden she feels like air. Piercia feels like air. And she feels herself rise up into the air. She's very familiar with the game Light as a Feather. So, light as a feather is when you put your fingers in it and the other person rises up. So she's very familiar with that game because she used to play it when she was younger. Piercia feels her body lift up, but she's so intrigued by the color show in her head that she doesn't open her eyes. All of a sudden, she hears whispers, super faint whispers that were in a voice of a woman. And at first, she didn't know what the woman was saying. She just could hear that she was whispering to her. And then the woman got louder and louder and louder. And then it felt like the woman was whispering directly into her ear in the outside world. So when it began, it was a voice inside her head. She's have her eyes closed, and it's a very faint voice in the back of her head just saying whatever it was saying. But then it starts getting louder and louder and louder in her head. And then finally, it's like she whispering in her ear. Boom. On the outside. And that kind of freaked Piercia out. So Piercia opened her eyes, and she jumped up, and she moved over, and she wasn't in bed. Where Piercia was just laying down trying to fall asleep to get to sleep and stuff, she was not in her bed anymore. She opened her eyes, and she jumped up, and there was not a woman by her. There was nobody around her. But now she was in a very, very big palace. Turns out it's a mansion, though. But it's a palace. So she's freaked out, and she's looking around like, who the freaking heck is talking in my ear like that? And she's looking around. There's nobody there. And she calms down and realizes she's not in her bed. She's not in her room. She's in some hallway with marble floors and pillars. And she's like, whoa, oh my God, it was so cute. She's like, whoa, okay, I feel like, ooh, this feels like something amazing. Like, I like it. I want to stay here. So, the thing that the woman said in her ear was, it's time. So when she heard that super close up to the outside of her ear, a woman telling her it's time, she opened her eyes and she woke up. So Piercia yells out into the open, into the new scenery she's in, it's time for what? It's time for what? And she's like, tell me, please tell me. I know I've always knew that it was something bigger going on. I always knew that something more was happening. Please come tell me, please. Show me, show me, show me. So she's pleading and she's begging to know, and she's pleading and she's begging to see the world that she knew was for her. She knew that it was something bigger and something way grander than what she was going through and what she was experiencing. And, you know, again, nothing happened. So she's like, okay, whatever. So she starts walking around to explore the house and explore where she was at to get an idea of where she was at. And it was so beautiful, she just couldn't take her eyes off of anything. It was so white and it was so clean and sparkly and just, it was just perfect. It was like heaven. And Piercia was like, I know somebody is here. I know you are here. I heard you. I already heard you. Just come out and show me yourself. Now, you know that saying, be careful what you wish for, because it might actually happen, right? So, this orb of light, this purple orb of light, not bright, opaque purple, but see-through purple, like bright, like lights, like rays of lights. I don't know how to explain it in a way to get it to you, but it comes and it just flies around. Well, not flies around, but it floats around a little bit, and it goes around her, and it goes around, and it goes down, and it goes up, and she's just watching it, and she's like, what the freaking heck? What's going on? What's she doing? And then it turned into a woof of butterflies. All of those 10 butterflies that she saw that day in real life, the 10 butterflies, the white ones, it morphed into white butterflies. And it's a big, big muscle of white butterflies. And she's like, whoa, what the freaking heck? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And it turns into a beautiful woman that looks exactly like the one that was in the mirror the night before. And she looks like her, but different. Just she looks a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and a little bit more put together. So she's looking at this woman and she's like, "Oh my God, you are so beautiful. Who are you?" And she goes, "I'm you." Piercia goes, "What? You're me? No, you're not. No, you're not. How can you be me? I'm me. What are you talking about?" She's like, "I'm you from the future, and this is our house." And I was like, Piercia was like, she was like, "What? You lying? Then you lying? Oh my God, are you serious?" And she's like, "Yes, this is our house." And Piercia's like, "How do I know that you're telling the truth? How do I know that you are really telling the truth? Like, how did we get here?" And she was like, now the orb that turned into bigger Piercia. So now we're gonna call future Piercia future Piercia. So future Piercia, she goes, "I can't tell you how we got here, but I can show you. All you gotta do is follow my directions." And Piercia, normal Piercia, 18-year-old Piercia is like, "Follow your directions? What do you mean follow your directions?" And she was like, "What did I tell you last night?" And Piercia goes, "You told me something last night?" And she said, and future Piercia says, "Yes, I told you so many things last night. Did they happen? Did you see them today?" And Piercia's like, "My friend was talking bad about me. I saw a lot of white butterflies that you just had around you." And she listed off everything else that had happened from her dream last night that happened in real life that day. And Piercia was like, "Yeah, so all you have to do is follow my directions." And 18-year-old Piercia, she's like, "But those weren't directions. Those were just statements. Those weren't directions. You didn't tell me what to do. You just told me statements." And she was like, "Yes, and those statements were directions." And Piercia was like, "I don't really understand what that means, but okay." And future Piercia was like, "You do know what it means, but just follow my directions." So Piercia said, "Okay." And future Piercia told her that she could continue to look around, but there was a few rooms that she couldn't go into because it was a surprise. So Piercia said, "Okay." And she walked around future Piercia's house that looked like a freaking palace, a mansion, but a palace. And, they got to the 3 doors that she couldn't go through. And one of them was blue, one of them was pink, and one of them was green. So the blue and the pink one, Piercia, 18-year-old Piercia, kind of in her head had a feeling like, okay, so that's a boy room, so I'm going to have a son. The pink one's a girl room, so I'm going to have a daughter. And then the green room, I don't know what that one is, but if I was to pick green for a baby, then I would think that that's a boy. So Piercia didn't go into the rooms, of course, because it was forbidden. And all of a sudden, Piercia heard beeping noises. And future Piercia told her that it was time for her to leave and time for her to go home. And then future Piercia turned back into butterflies and then into the purple light. And she went away. And 18-year-old Piercia, she goes, "But wait, how do I get back? How do I go back home? I'm here. How do I get out of here?" And then no one, future Piercia, she's gone. She didn't come back. She didn't come try to show her. So 18-year-old Piercia, she's like, "I don't know how to leave here. I don't know how to leave here." So she keeps walking around. And then she gets back to the doors because it's like she did a 360 circle. And she gets back to the 3 doors that she wasn't supposed to go into. But now future Piercia isn't there. So she's kind of tempted to open the door. So she's standing there and she touches the doorknob. And as soon as she touches the doorknob to the pink door, because she was very, very adamant to seeing what her daughter was like, as soon as she touched the doorknob for the pink door, she woke up in the real world. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe I wanted to see. I wanted to see. And then she was like, okay, whatever. I couldn't see anyway, so it's fine. So, that day, Piercia saw lots of white. So the next day, so one day after her birthday, Piercia kept seeing white butterflies. Piercia kept seeing purple things. And then when she was walking to the store, she saw a house with a blue door. And the address on the house was 777. So, Piercia didn't want to go up to the door because she didn't want to seem weird, but she kept track of the address. So, 777, a blue door. So, following some days after her birthday, Piercia started getting more downloads, but in the daytime instead of going to sleep because she couldn't sleep. After she touched touched the pink doorknob, or the pink doorknob, Piercia couldn't sleep for 14 days. So for 14 days, Piercia got downloads in the real world at the time where she would have been asleep getting downloads. And everything that she had thought and got downloads about during the night times of those 14 nights came true sometime within those 14 days. Sometimes it would come true the next day. Sometimes it would come true 3 days after the day she had thought about it. And sometimes it would come true 10 days after the day she thought about it. So, super long story short, because it's actually a very super long story, but we're going to keep dialing it down to just the main important parts. So, it was now 2 months after her 18th birthday, and she hadn't seen future Piercia in her dreams anymore because, again, like I said, she didn't have dreams for 14 days. And then when she started going back to sleep, she didn't have dreams at all. So she just had peaceful nights where, there was nothing she woke up to remember. It was nothing she experienced during the nighttime to even remember in the morning. So Piercia began to pray, asking God to show her more signs and to show her and to keep showing her. And as she's praying, she's steady getting more signs and she's getting more confirmations that what she saw was real, because after not seeing and not dreaming for a long time afterwards, she started to forget some things that was happening. She started going back to her normal life. And her master, aka God, wanted her to go back into the flow of how things were normally. But now, with the knowledge of all of the things that she downloaded within those first few months of after her birthday. So, one night, 2 months after her birthday, the master rose Piercia out of her sleep and ran messages through her spirit. But this time, Piercia wasn't awake when it happened. So she was asleep and she wasn't having a dream and she wasn't going to remember in the morning time. But God ran messages through her spirit, rose her out of her sleep, and put the messages through her spirit. So the next day of the master doing this, Piercia didn't remember her dream, but when she woke up, she just kept having thoughts. Every time someone spoke to her, every time someone was around her, every time something happened that day, her thoughts were super loud in her head, telling her either that somebody was lying, or that somebody was evil, or that somebody needed to stop coming around her. So every time she was talking to mostly her friends, her family members, neighbors and stuff like that, she just had this very loud voice in the back of her head telling her, he's a thief. Stop letting him in. She's a gossip. Stop telling her stuff. He's evil. Get away from him. All day, anytime Piercia was around anybody, she kept getting loud thoughts in the back of her head about who she was talking to, or who was talking to her, or who she was around. And she didn't say anything out loud because she didn't want to seem crazy, but she took account and took notes of everything that was happening. So, super long story short, because this is a very long story, and I just probably did a little bit too much, to be honest. But super long story short, this is only part one. But super long story short, Piercia was chosen before she was born to come into to the world to be a warrior. But she wasn't going to start real training until her 18th birthday. So, all the way until she was 18, she had just time to be. She just had time to be. There was no mission, there was no purpose. It was just for her to get 18, to get to her purpose, to get to her training, to get to the mission. So, the things that she was going through shaped her into the person she needed to be when she was 18, but it really wasn't as significant as what was going to happen after she turned 18. So, when she turned 18, Pierce's master, God, started her training. First, he gave her visualizations that came true. Then he gave her dreams that came true. Then he gave her pictures to make that in some way, shape, or form was going to be significant in somebody else's life. So not only did he give her things that was significant for her life, he gave her things to give other people that was going to be significant for their life. And yeah, like I said, super long story short. That's Piercia. So this is only part one. And I'm not going to tell you part two until like 3 years after today. What's today? It's June 14th, 2021. So I'll be able to tell you some more stuff later on. But yeah. Piercia was God's daughter, and Jesus was Piercia's brother. Yeah. Um, yeah. I think I'm going to leave the story right there. You know, marinate and decipher in it. If y'all have any questions, I would say just comment it, but if it says that comments are turned off, then I guess you ain't going to be able to comment any questions. But if it doesn't say comments are off, then ask questions. Okay?